The Agricultural Training Institute is the training and extension arm of the Department of Agriculture. It has a network of 16 regional training centers in the country. The ATI-RTC in Region 5 serves the 6 provinces in the Bicol region. These are Albay, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, Catanduanes, Masbate, and Sorsogon. We are committed to serve the training and extension needs of our clients.
In January to June 2019, ATI Bicol completed 60 ATI-funded training courses, an average of 10 each month. These activities served 2,947 stakeholders in agriculture and fisheries. 5 community-based learning sites brought the total number of ATI-certified farm tourism sites in Bicol to 51. The trainees consisted of extension workers, farmers, youths, and members of the 4-H Club and rural-based organizations such as Magsasakang Scientista and Rural Improvement Club. To ensure clients access to information, ATI Bicol developed knowledge products on herbal medicine for livestock and cabbage, as well as promotional materials featuring free seminars and ATI Bicol frontline programs and services. It reproduced, distributed, and translated knowledge products, as well as documented the success stories of Joros Farm in Ligao, Albay, the Nabua Gabi Farmers Association, and Mr. Cesar Miranya of OPAG Camarines Norte. The center popularized News Blast through ATI's official website and the social media sites of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Partnership with the Department of Agrarian Reform produced 29 community-based trainings and projects in Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, and Catanduanes. On the other hand, partnership with the Department of Agriculture's Regional Processing Center generated 43 trainings for community-based processing centers.
ATI Bicol's mission is empowerment and building capacities of agriculture and fisheries stakeholders for sustainable development in the Bicol region. We aim to give the best and outdo ourselves in fulfilling our mission, providing excellent extension services beyond boundaries. We are ATI Bicol.
My dear countrymen, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the Philippines has risen to 140. Upon further study of worldwide trends, I have come to the conclusion that stricter measures are necessary. It will be an enhanced quarantine during which the movement of everyone will be significantly limited.
So yung ATI Bicol VCQ, lumawak ako to. Kasi nakita natin yung oportunidad na mag-virtual visit sa ating mga kliyente at sa mga gustong matuto. Kailangan kumayo na tayo sa new normal. Kailangan ng ATI Bicol should be continuously visible. So we have to be continuous online visibility for information dissemination.
Ituring ang iyong sariling tagahawi ng ulap sa kalangitang kulimlim. Kampanang yayanig sa bawat nilalang, magigising ang lupang kulang sa dilim. Ikaw ang magsasabing kaya mo to, tulad ng isang tanglaw sa gitna ng bagyo. Isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag, liwanag sa dilim. Harapin mong magiting ang bagong awitin. Ikaw ang liwanag sa dilim. Whoa, whoa, whoa. At sa paghamon mo sa agos ng ating kasaysayan, uukit ka ng bagong daan. Oh, oh, ikaw ang aawit ng kaya mo to, isang panalangin sa gitna ng gulo. Isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag, liwanag sa dilim. Harapin mong magiting ang bagong awitin. Ikaw ang liwanag.
Binigyan tayo ng chance para mag-isip na mas maraming innovations. Kung pwede kayang mag-online, tapos hinimay. Pwede kaya tayo magkaroon ng TV show, ATI Bicol Sarabay Channel. Kasi yung word na Sarabay means all together.
Isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag sa dilim. Iting ang bagong awitin. Liwanag, isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag sa dilim. Harapin mong magiting ang bagong awitin. Liwanag sa dilim. Liwanag sa
Salamat mga subscribers! Salamat sa nag-like at share! Salamat sa ating resource person! Salamat sa ating learning site! Para sa ating mga magsasaka at mangingisda!
Alright, magandang umaga, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao at sa mga manonood natin, maging sa labas ng bansa. Magandang umaga po sa ating mga manonood via Facebook and YouTube Live. Narito naman po kami sa ikalawang araw ng ating 3 araw na pagsasanay sa Gender and Development. Hatid sa inyo ng Agricultural Training Institute o ATI Bicol. Para po sa kaalaman ng lahat, ang ATI Bicol po ay isang ahensya ng pamahalaan sa ilalim ng kagawaran ng pagsasaka na may mandato na magbigay ng mga training o pagsasanay sa extension services. Sa kasalukuyan, tayo po ay sumasa ilalim pa rin sa pandemya dulot ng COVID-19. Subalit hindi po ito pwedeng tumigil sa pagbibigay ng serbisyo publiko para sa ating mga kababayan. Patuloy ang pagbibigay natin ng serbisyo sa pamamagitan ng ganitong pamamaraan sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya. Sa lahat po ng ating viewers natin sa mga sumusubaybay, inaanyayahan po namin kayo ulit na i-share ang ating programa ito para sa Rabay Kitagabos makanood. Maaari niyong i-share ang aming Facebook Live at gamitin ang hashtag na ATI Bicol sa Rabay Channel. Nais ko dito mong i-acknowledge ang ating mga on-site participants mula po sa OPAG, Camarines Norte, sa pangunguna po ni Provincial Agriculturist ng Camarines Norte na City Engineer, Almirante Abad. Kaway-kaway po tayo dyan sa mga taga Camarines Norte. And para naman po sa mga online on-site participants po natin from OPAG Sorsogon sa pangunguna po ni Acting Provincial Agriculturist ng probinsya ng Sorsogon na si Mr. Roberto Fortes. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Kaway-kaway po. Kaway po mga taga Sorsogon. Ayan, ang mga nagagandahan natin mga participants from Sorsogon. Okay, bilang disclaimer po, ang ating pong mga on-site participants ay sumusunod sa mga health protocols tulad ng tamang pagsusuot ng face mask at social distancing. May mga nakahanda din pong alcohol para sa disinfection or any social contact dahil una po ang kaligtasan sa mga ganitong panahon. At ngayon, balikan naman po natin ng ilan sa mga mahalagang topic kahapon. Kahapon po ng umaga ang ating unang araw na pagsasanay na ito. Napag-usapan po ang mga topic na basic gender and development concept. Nakapaloob dito ang gender as a social construct, ang pinagkaiba ng sex sa gender, ang gender bias o ang hindi patas na pagtrato sa kasarian, human aspiration o yung mga kagustuhan ng tao, at ang SOGI bill para sa mga kapatid nating sa LGBT community. At ngayong umaga, tatalakayin natin ang mga legal na bagay sa topic na legal mandates, policy imperatives on God Republic Act 9710. Mapaloob po dito ang gender mainstreaming at gender fair language. At ngayon, para ipagpatuloy ang mga pagsasanay na ito, ibibigay ko na po kayo sa ating resource speaker na ang Independent God Consultant, NGRP member, at PCW, Philippine Council for Women, na si Ms. Maristela T. Santi. Ma'am, good morning po.
Good morning sa lahat. Sana we are all safe and healthy para natin itong ipapatuloy natin ating 3 days training, but we are on the second day. Kahapon, we have started with yung basic concepts. Ano ba talaga ang difference ng sex and gender? Ang pinakaano po doon, let's have a short recap. Yung basic, yung sex ay sabi natin ay kasarian, ang gender ay kagawian. So, sana we had a deeper understanding of the differences between sex and gender. Then, na-discuss natin yung mga gender biases. We have yung yung stereotyping. We have the canalization, economic marginalization, political subordination, at ang pinaka-critical ay yung violence against women. So, in that context, ina-emphasize natin na ang goal ng God ay gender equality at women empowerment. Then we had also some orientation on SOGI. And pagkatapos ng natin, we had a short video na hindi natin natapos and napag-usapan na aano natin yung ngayon. Parang yung kung ano ang a short recap of the video. Nagawa po ba natin? Natapos po bang paanohan yung video na Love is All You Need? Pakiano po sa chat box. May gumawa po ba?
Meron po.
Meron? Okay, ano? Okay na lang So, kung natapos yung mapanood yung Love is All You Need, that shows na yung situation ng LGBT community. Ano po? Pero ang pinaka main learning doon ay yung respeto. Ano po? We have to have or accord respect to our LGBT brothers or sisters na ang ano talaga doon sa pelikulang yun ay respeto. Sabi nga kahapon is na ano doon sa mga common policies and laws regarding LGBT, ang pinakaano po doon na we have to accord them with the human rights. Ano po? Kung ano ang kailangan, kung ano ang dapat na ibinibigay natin, lalo na pagdating sa health services. So, yun lang ang simpleng medyo ano yung picture, ay yung video, pero ang pinaka-essence po doon ay we have to have human respect and accord them with the human rights. Yan lang po. So, basically, we have done the first day. So, this second day, we will move on the more technical aspect of gender and development. Then we have the first topic is we will be discussing the legal mandates or the Magna Carta of Women, the Republic Act 9710. Are we ready for the day's activity? Sana lahat ay ano na tayo, ano po, ready na. So, for our scope of presentation, part 1 will be dealing with the policy imperatives on God. We have the international treaties and commitments. We have the CEDAW, BPFA, and the SDGs, or formerly this is the MDGs. Then we have the national mandates, 1987 Constitution, Republic Act 7192, General Appropriations Act, then the Magna Carta of Women. For our part 2, we will be discussing the gender mainstreaming. We have the different imperatives that it will be a part of our legal mandates. So, the first international treaty is the CEDAW. What is CEDAW? CEDAW is Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. It was adopted on 19 December 1979 and came into force on September 3, 1981. It is also described as an international Bill of Rights for women. It defines what constitutes discrimination against women and sets up an agenda for national action to end such discrimination, and it was highly ratified international human rights conventions with 189 states parties, in which the Philippines is one of the state party that participated in this convention. Article 3 states parties shall take in all fields. Ito po ang pinaka-essence ng CEDAW. Ano po? In particular, in the political, social, economic, and cultural fields, all appropriate measures, including legislation, to ensure the full development and advancement of women for the purpose of guaranteeing them the exercise and enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms on a basis of equality with men. So, in short, dapat there should be equality between men and women. It was signed by the Philippines on July 15, 1980, ratified on August 5, 1981, ratified the optional protocol to the CEDAW on November 12, 2003. So, 2003 pa po ang ang ratification of the CEDAW. Ano po ang mga basis for enactment of various laws addressing gender-based issues? The first one is the Republic Act 7192, which is known as Women in Development and Nation Building. We are proud that this act was sponsored by the late Senator Rocco. Ano po, kung ma-recall natin, he was even known as the honorary women. Then we have the 9262 or the anti-VAUSI. We started having discussions on the anti-VAUSI because it covers the violence against women, which is very crucial. Ano po? Then we have the 7877 or the anti-sexual harassment. This will be the last topic that we will have on the third day. So I will not give information on this because this will be discussed thoroughly. Republic Act 8505, we have the anti-rape. 8353, the Rape Victims Assistance. Then we have the 9208, amended by Republic Act 10,364 or the Anti-Trafficking in Persons. And we will discuss in detail the Republic Act 9710 or the Magna Carta of Women. In this act, all LGUs and NGOs are mandated to localize the Magna Carta of Women. The number 2 treaty is the BPFA or the Beijing Platform for Action. Every year, the Philippines is participating because this is a continuing activity of the treaty or of the group, which is the BPFA. The main objective of this action is to promote gender mainstreaming as a strategy to ensure that a gender perspective is reflected in all policies and programs at the national, regional, and international levels. It calls for concrete actions to protect and promote the human rights of women and girl children as an integral part of universal human rights. To eradicate the persistent increasing burden of poverty on women and remove all obstacles to women's full participation in public life and decision making at all levels, including the family. If we will look back yesterday's discussion, we really have a full or a thorough discussion that one of the causes of gender biases is on the family, or it is one of the social institution that yung nakakaapekto sa ating mga family situations. In fact, ang sabi doon sa isang paano natin masosolve ang problema, sabi it is sharing of domestic concern. Then we have to the parents must be role models to their children. So it is part of the advocacy on the BPFA. It also calls for elimination of all forms of VAW. Ang VAW po ay violence against women. Ensure equal access to girl, children, and women to education and health services. Promote economic autonomy for women and ensure their access to production resources. And encourage an equitable sharing of family responsibilities. It has 12 areas of concern for women and children. Ito po ang mga 12 areas of concerns. Women and poverty, education and training, women and health, violence against women and armed conflict, women and the economy, women and power and decision making, institutional mechanisms, human rights of women, women and media, women and the environment, and the girl child. So, the different areas covers the whole needs and aspect of or it is the holistic development of women and the girl child. Then we have the Sustainable Development Goals. Sabi nga natin, this is the SDG. Dati we term this as the Millennium Development Goals. It has 17 concerns or goals, but we are giving emphasis on Goal 5, which is gender equality, and that is habitat. This is one of the goals of God. Simply, it is said that achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. To end all forms of discrimination, eliminate forms of violence, and eliminate all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage, and female genital mutilation among women and girls. It recognizes and values unpaid care and domestic work because it has something to do with multiple burden and marginal or economic marginalization. Unpaid care, and domestic work. Then we have ensure women's full and effective participation and leadership and decision making. Then we ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. We have also undertake reforms to give women equal rights to economic resources as well as access to land and other resources. Then enhance the use of information and communications technology to promote the empowerment of women. As to the national mandates, the basis of the Magna Carta of Women, we have the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which states that the state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law and of women and men. Then it is widely explained on the Section 4, Article 13. Ano po? What are the opportunities or what are the functions that should be accorded to women? Then we have the 7192. Anahan lang po natin ito, bypass. Women and Building and Development and Nation Building Act. Ang pinaka-objective po nito ay to promote the integration of women as full and equal partners of men in development and nation building. So we have to grant women full legal capacity to act and enter into contracts and grants women right to admission into military schools. Kasi sabi ko nga kahapon that there was a study that only 2% are admitted or are enjoying or the opportunity to be in military schools. Then we have the GAA. Then the EO 273 or 273, it approved and adopted the PPGD or the Philippine Plans for Gender and Development. It mandates agencies to allocate funds for the implementation of a GAD plan. This EO 273 was approved and should be implemented sana since the time of President Fidel Ramos, but very slow ang implementation of some laws. The GAA mandates agencies to set aside 5% of their total annual budget for GAD concerns. Likewise, the 1995 or the Executive Order 273, it mandates to allocate funds for the implementation of a GAD plan. And now we will discuss in details our Magna Carta of Women. It is known as Republic Act 9710. siguro nagkaroon na rin kayo ng pagkakataon na mabasa itong Magna Carta of Women. Ito po ay handbook that was prepared by the Philippine Commission on Women, put into a handbook, but this was approved in 2009 at the time of President Arroyo. Ano po? Sabi na, what's in a name? Magna Carta for women, on women, or of women. Ang tama po ay Magna Carta of women. Kasi pag sinabi ng of women, ito ay pinagtrabahuhan or pinag-aralan ng mga kababaihan to solve the problems or the needs in the society, starting from our family to our workplace and in a society or in a community. Pag sinabi kasing for women, parang ibinigay lang. On women, parang lang, yung walang participation ang women. Pero pag sinabi nating Magna Carta of Women, talaga yan ay para sa atin. What is the Magna Carta of Women? Sabi, as defined by the experts, it is a comprehensive women's human rights law signed in 2009. It seeks to eliminate discrimination against women by recognizing, protecting, fulfilling, and promoting the rights of Filipino women, especially those in the marginalized sector. Ano po? Especially those in the marginalized sectors. So, ang characteristics po ng Magna Carta, it is against or to eliminate discrimination against women. You have to recognize, identifying the rights of Filipino women. You have to protect, fulfill, and promote the rights of the Filipino women, especially those in the marginalized sector. And I'm sure that these sectors, ito po ang mga clients natin. Ano po? Ito ang mga clients natin sa Department of Agriculture. And alam nyo yan kung sino-sino sila, but we will see who are the marginalized group. Who are in the marginalized sector? Tingnan natin. So we have the small farmers and rural workers. Alam ko na ito ang mga natin, ito ang ating clients. Then we have the indigenous peoples, fisher folks, senior citizen, persons with disability, workers in the informal economy. We have the Moro, children, urban poor, migrant workers, we have the solo parents, and workers in the formal economy. Kung titingnan nyo, siguro lahat ito ay ating clients in our agency or in our organization. So it is a must now. We have to know them, we have to classify them, then we have to know the needs of our people in the marginalized sector. What does Magna Carta says, or the Magna Carta of Women, IRR? It is the internal regulations and rules, or implementing rules and regulation. IRR is implementing rules and regulation. The Section 2 Declaration of Policy, the state promises to affirm the role of women in nation building, to ensure the substantive equality of women and men, and to abolish unequal structures and practices. We have to look at the substantive equality. Pag sinabi nating equality, dapat talaga yung what is needed. May sustansya ang ibibigay mong programa, projects and ang ating mga activities to cope up with the mandate of our organization. We have the formal equality and the substantive equality. Ang galing ko daw muna ito. Sorry, tatanggal muna ako ng mask. Pag sinabi nating formal equality, it is an approach wherein men and women are seen as similar. It is afforded similar treatment. Biological, cultural, and social differences are ignored, and particular needs of women are not addressed. But if we take out the substantive equality, it entails that women are given equal opportunities to achieve equal results. It is critical that for equality to be meaningful, the particular needs of women must be taken into consideration. So pag gumagawa po tayo ng programa or projects for our clients, we have to look into the substantive equality na po. We have to give what is really needed, but first of all, you have to know the needs and paano ang accessibility of our clients. These are the principles of human rights of women. Human rights are universal, inalienable. So, pag sinabi natin human rights, kung ano po ang nangyayari, it must be universal. Ano po? All individuals are equal as human beings by virtues of the inherent dignity of each human person. Then, no one should suffer discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, gender, age, then language, sexual orientation, and disability. Po ang sinabi nating discrimination against women if it is any gender-based distinction, exclusion, or restriction. Na po. Which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, and exercise by women, respective of their marital status, on a basis of equality of men and women, of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So, sinasabi na women's rights are human rights. So, ang sabi nga, we should not sacrifice human rights pag nagawa tayo po ng mga programs. So, we come to the rights and empowerment as stated in the Magna Carta of Women. The first is the protection from violence. Ang pinaka-importante kasi yung pang-aapi or pang-aabuso. Ano po? So, incremental increase in the recruitment and training of women, sabi nga, in police force, forensics and medical legal services and social work services, fields that provide services for women victims of gender-related offenses. Ang role says na at least 50% women within the next 5 years. So pagdating po sa mga trainings on legal services, medical legals, dapat po at least 50% of women has been recruited or have availed the training on in the identified sectors or Sabi nga, CSC to conduct personal audit and recommend to DBM stopping measures, NAPOLCOM, NBI, and DOJ to set policies, rules, and regulations for the incremental increase on recruitment and training of women. Ito, protection and security in situations of emergency, armed conflict, and militarization. Yung areas, this is lalo na po naka-address sa OPAP, the NDAFP, DSWD, DepEd, DOH, NCIP, NCMF, and LGUs. Ano ang dapat i-provide sa mga area na may mga armed conflict and militarization or in any situations of emergency? We have to ensure that participation of women and planning and management of relief operations, then provision of relief supplies, give due consideration to specific requirements of pregnant women, lactating mothers, sick people, senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and children. Ito po lalo kung may mga evacuation because of emergencies in a certain place. You have to be, dapat po ay accord kung ano talaga ang pangangailangan ng mga kababaihan lalo na at mga bata, including the senior citizens and PWDs. All government personnel involved in the protection and defense of women against gender-based violence to undergo mandatory training on human rights and gender sensitivity. All barangays to establish violence against women's desk. Ano po? This is a mandate or may memorandum circular po nito ang DILG that all barangays should establish violence against women's desk. Pero may at least 87% of all barangays have established. Pero ang concern dito po ay hindi lang established but it must be functional and operational. Protection and security in times of disasters, calamities, and other crisis situations. Ito naman po ay ensure the participation of women in gender-responsive disaster management, including preparedness, mitigation, risk reduction, and adaptation. Ini po sa mga yung MDRRMO, ito po ang concern nyo. LGUs and agencies concerned in disaster risk and reduction shall develop and implement a gender-responsive work in financial plan. Proactive adoption of measures by camp managers to prevent sexual violence in evacuation centers and relocation sites. Kasi there are times na sa evacuation center, walang ilaw, walang separate CRs, and mga bathrooms. Ano po? Dapat po you should be gender responsive. Hindi lang yung evacuation center, but it must be gender sensitive facilities in order to prevent sexual violence in evacuation centers and relocation sites. Participation and representation. Empowerment within the civil service. At least a 50-50 gender balance for employees at the third level position. All agencies to take proactive steps to capacitate women employees for third level positions to meet the 50-50 gender balance in 5 years. Sana sa opisina nyo or in your workplace, na-observe po ito. The 50-50 gender balance in employment. Pero there are times na kung saan mas marami pa nga ang lalaki, may ang justification nila because of the kind of work that they are having. Then participation of women on all levels of development planning and program implementation. It has something to do with the development councils. Ano po, lalo sa barangay level. Na dapat po at least 40 membership of all development council shall be composed of women. LGUs are tasked to submit list of women appointed in third level positions to CASB every end of semester whenever applicable. You have to determine the sex ratio of mandated members of local development councils. So, sex disaggregated data is again necessary or a must in an office. It has something to do also for the participation and representation. It is also a mandate that COMELEC to incorporate guidelines for accreditation of political parties, specific provision that promote integration of women of said political parties. Leadership and private sector is also a must. Ito ang importante po, equal treatment before the law. Review and, if necessary, amendment or repeal discriminatory laws within 3 years from the effectivity of the Magna Carta of Women. MCW is Magna Carta of Women. We have the Family Code provisions and also the revised Penal Code provisions. We have the anti-rape, the CMPL, and the and to the Family Code provisions, may mga ano na po, may mga provisions na rini-revise po ng nasa ano na po yata, nasa Congress for revision and for study. Ano po? Family Code Article 14 on provision giving preference to the father's consent to the marriage of children between ages and 21. In the revised penal code, ito po yung mga pinag-aaralan kasi parang hindi patas ang pagbibigay ng evidence between adultery and concubinage. So, as to the conviction, mas madali po ang pagpuprove ng adultery. Pag sinabi nating adultery, that is yung ano yan, babae ang may kasalanan. Kasi sabi dito, it is only the proof of sexual intercourse by a woman with a man other than her husband. Isang case lang or isang act lang na yan ay convicted na ang babae. While in concubinage, iba ang ano. So pinag-aaralan ng gobyerno na dapat pareho po ang mga ano po, process or on the sufficient basis for infidelity or in the conviction of adultery and concubinage. Then equal access and elimination of discrimination in education, scholarships, and training. Ano po? This has something to do with yung dapat patas ang pag-access lalo sa eskwelahan, mga scholarships and training. So, it is mandated to revise the revision of gender stereotypes and images and existing educational materials and curricula. Na-mention ko kahapon na maraming mga nag-a-appear sa mga mass media na may mga mali or siguro hindi masyadong na-review ang mga materials and curricula regarding gender stereotypes. And the use of gender-fair language. Dapat po pag-training natin or in our offices, we are now aware of the use of gender-fair language. We will take the topic after gender mainstreaming. Capacity development on God for teachers, other personnel. Ano po? Sabi ko kahapon, in-emphasize ko that capacity development is really a must or it is very important. Kasi pag hindi natin alam o wala tayong at least basic knowledge on GST, mahihirapan. Kasi pag-aano lang natin, pag-identify ng ating mga clients and also paano natin ma-identify ang needs ng ating mga clients ay dapat talaga alam natin. The DepEd test the intent to develop programs to increase the enrollment of women in non-traditional skills, training in vocational and tertiary levels. Develop policies to ensure that all teachers and trainers have equal access to scholarships. Outlaws, ito po, kasi noon, pag nagbuntis ang isang personnel, lalo na kung teacher at isang estudyante, automatic po ini-expelled and tini-terminate siya sa service. But with the Magna Carta of Women, sinasaad po doon na you have to comply with the outlaws, the expulsion and non-readmission of women faculty due to pregnancy outside of marriage. Bawal na po na basta-basta na lang ite-terminate ang isang teacher or it has something to do with, lalo po ito sa DepEd, TESDA, INCHED. Prohibits the school from expelling or refusing admission to a female student solely on the grounds of pregnancy outside of marriage during her school term. So pag nagbuntis po ang estudyante, dapat po hindi i-expel or refuse for admission. Kasi there are times na kung nagbuntis siya, maybe because she is a victim of rape or other pang-aabuso. Develop programs and policies to prevent BAW or violence against women, and we must coordinate with PNP, DOJ, CHR, DSWD, and the LGU in giving appropriate assistance to female faculty and student victims of BAW. So dapat alam talaga po ito kung ano ang mga kailangan or ano ang mga privilege. Then, participation in sports. Dapat po daw parehas or shall create guidelines to establish and integrate affirmative action as a strategy in gender equality and planning and implementing PPAs relating to the participation of women and girls in sports. Dapat alisin yung mga gender-based discrimination in competitive and non-competitive sports. Dapat po ang pag-grant ng scholarship should be equal to men and women. Ano po? And it must take into each total women and student population in granting athletic scholarship. Ito naman po pagdating sa field of military, police, and other similar services. Lalo na po naka-address po sa DND, DILG, DOJ, and LGUs. Same privileges and opportunities as in pay increase, additional benefits, and awards. Dapat po, promotion should be dapat parehas. Ano po? I-consider ang both men and women. Accord women and men the same capacity to act and enter into contracts, including marriage, and open all military and similar services, occupation registration, special enlistment and trainings to women. Totoo ito kasi, dati walang mga babae sa PMA, but ngayon, marami na ang babaeng nag-graduate sa PMA. And there was a time na marami yung mga sa top 10 ay lahat babae, pero may mga reaction naman yung mga ibang mga grupo na hindi na daw tanggapin yung babae kasi lahat na lang nag-o-honor or may award. So parang mali naman. That is contrary to the Magna Carta of Women. Then, non-discriminatory and non-derogatory portrayal of women in media and film. In-explain natin ito kahapon doon sa violence against women. Ano po? Ang message lang dito ay that media and film industries comply with the act. Dapat hindi derogatory at discriminatory ang kanilang mga pinapakita. Ito po. Comprehensive health services and health information. Ito po ay naka-address sa DOH, PhilHealth, DOLE, DepEd, CHED, and LGUs. It should cover all stages of a woman's life cycle. Addresses the major causes of morbidity, maternal care, responsible, ethical, legal, safe, and effective methods of family planning. Ito pa, iba-iba pa mga. Sa LGU naman, dapat po magkaroon kayo ng God code, then reproductive health code. Promote the comprehensive health of girls, adolescents, women, and elderly women. Dapat may health human resource development plan. Ano po? Ito ang mga iba-ibang comprehensive health services. Ano po? May I remind again na ang magkakaroon po kayo ng PDF, ano po, of all the training materials that we had undertake. Kasi mahirap itong hindi nyo na, nasusundan lahat. We'll be giving out PDF for all the topics that we have discussed. Ito po, importante ito, especially benefits for women. Ito po, kung hindi nyo pa alam, aside from the mandatory maternity leave, ito po ay especially benefits female employees in the public and private sector who undergo surgery caused by gynecological disorder shall be entitled to 2 months special leave with full pay based on gross monthly compensation. Ano po? Ang keyword dito ay makaka-avail lang ang isang babae kung kayo ay nag-undergo ng surgery, ano po, by gynecological disorders. Ang doktor alam yan kung ano-ano ang yung mga gynecological disorders. If extended leave is needed, and credits may be used, but it is non-cumulative and non-convertible to cash. Ano po? Baka hindi daw convertible to cash ang special leave. Ito po may kulatilya. But she should have rendered 6 months of continuous employment service for the last 12 months prior to surgery. Ano? At least 6 months of continuous employment service for the last 12 months. Bago kayo po maka-avail nitong special benefit leaves or the gynecological disorders leave. And remember po, it is non-cumulative and non-convertible. Ito po, yung equal rights in all matters relating to marriage and family relations. Set standards in developed gender fair modules on marriage, family relations, parent effectiveness, and non-sexist child rearing. Yung inaano po na ang pag-aalaga ng bata, it must be non-sexist. Hindi lang babae or hindi lang lalaki. But pareho po silang pwedeng do the work. LGUs provide trainings on the popularization of rights and obligation of spouses. Siguro ginagawa naman ito sa LGU or sa ibang mga agencies. It is inaumpisa nito po doon sa marriage counseling. Composed of yung taga-health, DSWD, and taga-agriculture personnel to do the marriage counseling. The Supreme Court, DOJ, and IBP ensure the gender equality and women's empowerment agenda are mainstream in the mandatory continuing legal education. So ngayon, hindi lang tayo, hindi lang lahat na agencies are mandated on the Magna Carta of Women. So tulong-tulong dapat ang lahat na agencies. Dito pinapangalanan pati kung ano ang dapat mong gawin as an agency. Ito po, dito tayo concerned na masyado ang agriculture. Ano po? The DA, DOST, DTI, DOA, DA ulit, DAR, DOT, BFAR, NCIP, DBWH, LGUs. That is the food security and productive resources. It provides for the right to food security and productive resources. Hindi natin ito pwedeng i-deny. Ito ang ating pinaka-core or ito ang ating pinaka-mandato. Ano po? So, including equal right of women in the titling of the land and issuance of stewardship contracts and patents. Ngayon po sa DAR, iba na po talaga ang pag-aano ng title, ano po, or titling of the land and issuance of stewardship contracts and patents. Kung noon ay sasabihin lang, married to, ngayon dapat ay spouses. Lalaki at ang babae naka-indicate na po doon sa certificate of title. So there are equal rights between husband and wives in the titling of the land. Kasi may problema pag hindi nakatitulo, pag dumating sa panahon na nagkahiwalay ang nawawala ng right ang babae kasi sasabihin hindi man nakapangalan sa iyo, ano po. So isa yan sa napansin ng Magna Carta of Women. Localized, accessible, secure, and affordable housing to ensure full participation and involvement of women and land use, zoning, and community planning and development. Siguro may mga LGUs na may mga housing programs for their personnel or other for the poor or their constituents na walang bahay. Dapat it must be in accordance with the Magna Carta of Women laws. Na po. It must ensure non-discrimination against female-headed households in the provision of relocation or resettlement sites. Sa iba nga, dapat unahin yung mga female-headed households. So, ang kailangan dito, dapat may sex disaggregated data. And some of this data can be found in the CBMS or other data or sources of data in the offices. And also you have to provide the basic social services and resettlement communities. Ang NHA ngayon ay pag nagbigay ng lote, may mga lahat ng basic social services ay package. Decent work, standards for women and support services in gears to protect women from occupational and health hazards. Maganda na ngayon at least ang mga opisina ngayon talagang A1 or class naman, may mga provisions of aircon, the lighting facilities are excellent na po. Support services that will enable work and family life balance. Initiate investment-friendly policies, systems, programs, and procedures to returning women migrant workers to help them establish local business. Lalo na po ngayong pandemic time, dapat alam niyan kung ilan ang mga returning migrant workers, at least matulungan. Kasi that is a mandate in the Magna Carta of Women. Especially the DOLE, the POA, the OWA, yan ang mga concern nila po. For livelihood, credit, capital, and technology. Sa atin sa agriculture, kung minsan hindi naman problema mag-provide ng mga livelihood programs kasi we can coordinate with other agencies. Assistance to provide women livelihood, credit, capital, and technology. We have the DOF, we have the DTI, and other major financing institutions that help in the different sectors na nangangailangan po ng livelihood programs. Skills training, business-related trainings for women entrepreneurs. Ito, matagal na po itong nag-i-exist with the presence of the DOLE, the NAPSI, DOST, DTI, DA, fisheries, and other agencies, lalo na itong mga na-enumerate po dito sa Magna Carta of Women. You are directly mandated to provide the different trainings, skills trainings, and other business-related trainings. So, mas madali na po kung at your level or mga agricultural extension workers, at your level, may na-identify kayo ng mga trainings or pangangailangan ng inyong mga clients, you can have, kung hindi kaya ng office natin, we can request the DOST and DTI for assistance. Marami kaming projects noon sa Bula na it survived because we have a full coordination with the national government agencies. They were providing mga shared facilities. Then for livelihood also, credit, capital, and technology. Yan, trainings of packaging, marketing, and product development. Then enhance access to credit and capital. This is true particularly for the personnel. You can have the GSIS and the SSS. For education and training, you have to access to skills trainings and retraining of returning women migrant workers. That is also one of the rights and of the marginalized sector. Then develop and implement gender-sensitive training program. Kahapon po, inulit-ulit ko na dapat lahat ay magkaroon ng basic GST training program. Hindi lang yung mga technical working group, DIGAD focal point system, but lahat po ng ating mga clients ay magkaroon ng capacity development on GST or on GAD. Equal opportunities and scholarships for technical skills, training, and development. Madami po itong pero ang iba hindi naman address sa atin. Pero kasi ang mandato ng ating agency ay to reduce poverty, and we are more concerned of the marginalized sector. So we have to know this. And also the right to information. We have, sa agriculture walang problema kasi we have mga brochures, mga leaflets, reading materials on technology transfer. I-include na natin yung sa women empowerment and gender equality IEC materials. Anyway, some of the printing expenses can be charged to GAD fund. Ano po? Then we have the social protection. Ito masyadong concern natin, the SSS and the PhilHealth. But marginalized sectors should be accorded. Lalo na po ang mga senior citizen, we advise them na dapat naka-enroll sila sa PhilHealth. Because of the program of the government that they have, once senior ka na po, you have a lifetime coverage of PhilHealth. Lalo na itong mga retirees, you have to advise them to update their records and the PhilHealth. Ano po? Institute policies and programs to reduce poverty. Matagal na natin itong ginagawa. Sabi ko nga, ang ating programa, ang ating activities at ating projects, it should be anchored on the mandate, which is one of which is to reduce poverty. So, poverty reduction is one of the mandates of DA. Tingnan natin, naka-identify dito ang DA. DOLE, DA, NAPSI, DTI, DFA, OWA, and NCDA. Ito naman po sa cultural identity and integrity. You have the different, ewan ko kung sa mga lugar nyo ay may mga IPs or indigenous people. Sabi ko nga, I advise you to at least look into the handbook of the especially the NCIPs. Ano po? Kasi iba man ang nila. You have to recognize and preserve their cultural identity and integrity. Nakalimutan ko lang kung anong number yung Republic Act that covers the preservation and recognition of the cultural identity of the NCIPs or the indigenous peoples. Peace and development, you have to increase women's participation in the discussion and decision-making and peace process. In peace agenda and the peace perspective in education, And you have to recognize and support for women's role, conflict prevention, management and resolution, and peacemaking. Ano po? WEDS, ito po, the services and interventions for women in especially difficult circumstances or WEDS. Women in especially difficult circumstances. There must be provision of services and interventions to victims and survivors of sexual and physical abuse, illegal recruitment, prostitution, trafficking, women and detention in other pang-aabuso, ano po. Mandated po tayo dito dahil we are barangay based, ano po. So we have to coordinate with your LGUs. Kung hindi man kayo wala kayong direct ano sa kanila, you can advise or you can remind your LGUs para take action itong iba-iba ditong rights na maybe siguro hindi nila alam kung ano-ano ang mga dapat na maibigay natin sa ating mga clients. Protection of girl children. Ito po, dapat magkaroon sila ng yung LCPC, the Local Council for Protection of Children, existing indigenous mechanisms. Pursue measures to eliminate all forms of discrimination against girl children. Sabi ko nga, kung wala tayong direct participation sa kanila, at least, i-remind natin, sir, ano po ba, existing po ba ang council nyo sa protection of children? Yung mga women empowerment activity, yung WEDS? Kasi it is also our obligation to help in the advocacy of the Magna Carta of Women. Protect girl children from all forms of abuse and exploitation. So, yun ang mga Pagdating naman po sa senior citizen, from neglect, abandonment, domestic violence, abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. All programs and services for senior citizens shall be gender responsive, rights-based, and culture-sensitive. LGUs shall ensure that the specific needs and concerns of women, senior citizens are identified and addressed. Ang nakalagay po dito ay women. Pero kung may mga makita tayo o ma-identify na mga kalalakihan na senior citizens na nangangailangan po o nagkakaroon, nag-experience ng the same experience or itong mga pinag-identify dito, enumerate na mga protection guides, i-report din natin. Kasi the government will take care of them. And kasi nga ang pinag-uusapan natin dito ay gender and development. Again, may I remind you that when we speak of gender, it means men and women. Kailan kung makikita nyo dito, kasi ito ay Magna Carta of Women. But it does not exclude men that are in need or yung nangangailangan din ng mga protection and rights. Ano po? Ito ang tinatawag nating institutional mechanisms. Paano natin mapagaan or mapadali ang pag-localize ng Magna Carta of Women? Number 1 is Section 36 or the GM, or we call it the gender mainstreaming as a strategy to implement MCW. We cannot implement MCW if we are not gender mainstream. So, ganito po ang process ng bago tayo makarating sa paggawa ng ating gender responsive plan, you have to know talaga the technical aspects of GAD. Ano po? Then we have GAD, FPO, and embassies and consulates. Hindi masyado natin concern dito. NCR, FW to PCW. Kasi noon, ang pangalan po ng Philippine Commission on Women ay National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women. It was late 2000 that the PCW or the NCR FW was renamed PCW, Philippine Commission on women. If we will know, the Commission on Human Rights, they have also a God Ombud. Ano po? So, Commission on Human Rights, may sarili din silang God Ombud. Then we have the Section 40, as an institutional mechanism, they have to have a monitoring progress and impact. So for every agency na may God focal point system, you have to include monitoring and evaluation committee, because there is a section that requires us to monitor and evaluate all programs, whether if it is gender sensitive or gender responsive. So in the implementation of God, dapat it must be properly monitored and the impact should be studied. Ano po? Kaya may ano po, isa yang check or institutional mechanism. Then we have also penalties, incentives and awards. Like other programs, we have also the incentive awards in God. It is called God Timpala. Ano po? Section 43, then we have also the funding. Ang funding, ito na nga nasabi doon sa, ano na, it must be at least 5% of your total agency budget. So those are some of the institutional mechanisms. It is very explicit on the Magna Carta of Women. God planning and budgeting, M&A for God. Then we have the God code. Kanina sinabi ko na monitoring and evaluation for God. It is not only how we prepare the God plan and budget, but we must have a monitoring and evaluation process for God. Then we have the God code. Ang God code ay para din niya na i-adapt mo yung mga ano doon sa taken from the Magna Carta of Women. Ano po? God code. Hindi ko alam kung lahat na LGUs ay may God code. Pero alam ko ang province of Sorsogon yata may God code. Ang provincial level. Ano po? Kami kasi sa former munisipyo ko, bago po ako we have the God code. Yan maganda kasi pinagtutulong-tulungan yan ng lahat na sectors ng LGUs, sila ang nagawa ng God code. Ang basis po natin yan ay ang Magna Carta of Women. Then we have the God focal points system. Noon, ang ano lang po ay God focal person. Ano po? God focal person, tao. But ngayon po ay God focal point. Sana naman po ang lahat na barangays ay ang lahat na agencies ay functional po ang God focal points. Kasi hindi kayo pwedeng walang God focal point system. Siguro pag nagkaroon ng training on, baka madaanan natin sa pag nag-gender mainstreaming, kasi isa yan po sa essential elements in gender mainstreaming, but particularly po ang details ng pag-discuss niyan ay nasa God planning and budgeting. And we will not handle or will not take God planning. Kasi that is considered a specialized training for the God focal point system. Then we have the God database. God database is basic and it is a must. It is even required in the Magna Carta of Women. Anyway, we will discuss God database. In-include ko pala po dito sa next or tomorrow, we will discuss in detail what God database is. So, ito po, all agencies, offices, bureaus, issues, DOCCs, LGUs, and other government instrumentalities shall formulate their annual God plans and budgets. Pag marunong o magaling tayo mag-identify ng gender issues, wherein itong pinag-aralan natin sa first day ng mga gender biases, kung alam nyo yan, madali po tayo gawa ng God plan. Kasi those will be considered issues, but it must be supported by some elements. Ang paggagawa po ng God plans, it must be within the context of their mandates. Paulit-ulit ko din sinabi na ang ating plans and programs must be within the context of our agency mandates. Kaya dapat alam natin kung ano ang inyong agency mission and vision. Kasi that spells out your agency mandates. It responds to gender gaps and issues. Yes, issues or gender gaps. And as to the GAD budget, at least 5% of the total agency or LGU budget shall correspond to PAPs in the GAD plan. Ang sabi ay at least, ano po? So meaning, it must not be below 5 and it can be more than 5 or the total budget for God. Kasi ang sabi, the 5% could influence the 95% of your activities and programs. God budget shall be drawn from MOOE, capital outlay and personal services. Hindi natin i-discuss in details. Sino po ba ang nagre-review ng annual GAD FBS of agencies? Ang DA ay ang nagre-review ay ang PCW. Pag LGU, ang nagre-review ay ang Local Development Unit. Ang nagre-review niyan ay bago idalhin sa DILGI ang MPDO, then PDO, then to the DILG. So, iba po ang nagre-review ng inyong mga God plan. Ano po na ang purpose ng God Code? The God Code is to ensure sustainable, gender-responsive local governance. All LGUs shall develop and pass a God Code to support their efforts in recognizing, respecting, protecting, fulfilling, and promoting women's human rights towards the attainment of women's empowerment and gender equality in their locality. Sabi ko nga kanina, you are mandated to have a God Code. And the God Code, pwede na po yan itong i-based sa Magna Carta, then you will have your own. It must be, dapat magkaroon kayo ng IRR of your God Code. Implementing rules and regulation. It serves as basis for identifying programs, activities, and projects on God. Simply, it will be the basis for identifying your programs or the PAPs on God. You have to create or strengthen God focal point system because it serves as catalyst to accelerate gender mainstreaming within the agency or LGU. Ito na po ang magiging roles ng God focal point system or responsibility. Take a lead role in direction setting, advocacy, planning, monitoring, and evaluation, and technical advisory on mainstreaming God perspectives in the agency, LGU programs, projects, activities, and processes. Institutionalize the creation of God focal points system through issuances from agency head or local chief executives. In short, this is the function of the God focal point system. Hindi pwedeng walang God focal point system. It shall form part of the regular key result areas and shall be given due consideration in their performance evaluation. God database, i-discuss ko ito ang God database. Huwag na natin itong discussion ang focal point officer ng Philippine Embassies and Consulates. It is only information na sa embassies and consulates ay may gender God focal point officer din sila. So the Philippine Commission on Women acts as the primary policy making and coordinating body on women's empowerment and gender equality concerns. Siya po ang agency na ano sa atin, nag-monitor. They serves as overall monitoring body in oversight to ensure the Magna Carta of Women's implementation and also the Commission on Human Rights. Because the human rights acts on investigation in complaints of discrimination and violence of women's rights. Ito po ang mga penalties. The Commission on Human Rights to recommend CSCDILD Sandigan Bayan, Office of the Ombudsman, administrative or disciplinary measures for individual who violates the law. The CSC shall act on human rights recommendation within 60 days upon receipt. If violence was perpetrated by agents of the state, such shall be considered aggravating offenses with corresponding penalties. Ang penal provisions for if individual ang may kasalanan, person directly responsible shall pay damages, can pursue the remedies under the MCW and under laws. So, kung hindi tayo nagsunod sa mga patakaran ito, hindi natin na-implement, we can be sued. Ano po? Following these provisions. By incentive and awards, then we have to, awards will be given by the PCW to deserving entities, agencies for their outstanding achievement and or performance and upholding and effective implementation of gender responsive programs. Hindi po. What strategy will be used to implement Magna Carta is through gender mainstreaming. So mamaya, ang next topic natin ay gender mainstreaming. So mamaya pa ito i-discuss. Next topic, ang gender mainstreaming. Siguro we have 1 hour continuous. We will have a CR break. How many minutes ang gusto niyo po? We'll be back at 10, 5 minutes break. Opo. Sige po.
Alright, magandang umaga po. Okay, bilang tuloy-tuloy po ang ating lecture ngayon, medyo mabilis po ba? Yan, sa ating mga online participants, magandang umaga po. Lahat po ba nakakasabay? Yan, so dun po sa mga merong katanungan na gustong linawin kay Ma'am Maristela, pwede po natin siyang i-comment sa ating comment box. And pwede rin po na sa mga on-site participants naman po natin, pwede nyo pong i-raise yan mamaya. And bibigyan po namin kayo ng time sa audio ninyo para i-raise po yung mga questions ninyo. So mamaya po, pagkatapos ng ating huling topic para sa araw na ito, i-entertain po natin lahat ng mga tanong po ninyo. Ayun po ba? Okay po. So ngayon po, ibabalik ko na po kayo kay Ma'am Maristela for the continuation of our lecture.
Ano? Di ka na daw.
Ayan, so habang inaayos po natin ang slides ni Ma'am Maristela, ayan, inuulit ko po para po sa ating mga online participants, you can comment your questions po and then we're going to entertain that later. Okay, shoutout po tayo dun sa ating mga online participants. Yan, nakakita ko ng mga iba't ibang LGU sa Camarines Norte, mga LGU sa Camarines Sur, LGU sa Sorsogon, LGU sa Catanduanes at sa Masbate. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Sana po ay kayo po ay natututo at nagkakaroon ng karagdagang kaalaman para sa patungkol sa gender and development. Ayan. So, sa pagkakaalam po na lahat, ito po ay 3 araw na pagsasanay tungkol sa gender and development. So ngayon po ang ating pangalawang araw. Okay, dun naman po sa mga nagtatanong kung may certificates po tayo, these certificates all intended po, dun po sa mga nakapag-register po sa amin online. Okay, so feeling ko okay na po si Ma'am Maristela. Yan, bigay ko na po siya sa inyo.
Sir, tuloy-tuloy na tayo. Ang next topic natin ay gender mainstreaming. So, we will have to define the mainstreaming. Yung policies po ay na-discuss na natin. So, after that, we will go direct to the gender mainstreaming in governance. Ano nga ang mainstream? Kasi very common po ito. Sasabihin natin, ma'am, naka-mainstream na ang aming plans and programs. But this time, we will give you the correct information of what is mainstreaming of all your programs and projects in the preparation of your God plan and budget. When we mainstream, we have the mechanisms, we have your decisions, and we have all the resources. Ano po? Put in together with all the different mechanisms, then we are having a mainstreaming process. So, we will define what is God mainstreaming. Sabi, it is a strategy to ensure the recognition of the gender issues on a sustained basis. Remember, the key word is gender issues. So, we have to must have a good knowledge of what are the gender issues. In the first day, we discussed the gender biases, and those biases are considered gender issues. Then, a strategy to ensure that gender equality is considered in the mainstream. Pag sinabi again natin na gender equality, giving considerations to the differential needs of both men and women. So it is not only considering the needs of one sex, but we have to consider both men and women, their needs, their interests, and other factors that would lead to gender equality. So that is, remember that mainstreaming is a strategy. Ano po? When we say God mainstreaming, that is a strategy to ensure that the gender issues are considered in the mainstream. Inclusion of a gender perspective in the design and implementation of plans and programs to carry out organizations' mandates. Again, we go back to the mandates. So I have been, basta ako mag-God training, lagi ko pong ini-emphasize na you must have your God mandates as a basis for your gender responsive governance. Kasi pag hindi nyo alam kung ano ang mandato ng iyong agency, you cannot have or you cannot go on with the gender responsive plans and programs, which is mandated in the GAD. Gender perspective. So lahat ng gagawin natin ay tinitingnan natin on gender perspective. Tingnan natin ang drawing or ang illustration. Gender perspective considering both men and women. Ano po? We recognize the imbalance in the status of women and men, challenges gender roles that treat women as passive recipients and beneficiaries of development assistance, and stresses the need for women to organize themselves and participate in development process. Sabi nga ni Kant, ability to do and to be, that is the good development process. So you have to know in here we have to recognize the imbalance in the status. Then we have to treat that women not only as passive recipients and beneficiaries. Hindi lang yung andyan ka lang, hindi ka naman kinukonsulta. But then you have also to see to it that they organize themselves and organize and participate in all the development processes. So what is God mainstreaming? It is allocating adequate resources. Sabi ba gano, must have an adequate resources. Ano ba ang mga resources? For the conduct of gender responsive activities in the regular organization program. Ano ba ang mga resources sa atin bago tayo magkaroon ng magandang programa? Siguro ang unang resource ay ang mga tao. Human resource is the most important aspect in the development planning or the development activities. You know, sino ang mga clients nyo, sino ang mga beneficiaries, ano ba ang makukuha ng mga ito. So you have to know your clients. Adequate resources plus yung ano ang mga pwede, halimbawa, ano ang mga kailangan nindang trainings, ano ang mga programs na that would support on their needs, ano ang mga pangangailangan, paano maigagawa ang mga activity. So you have to consider their needs, their resources, at iba-iba pang mga activities ng inyong clients. It involves changing policies in institutions to actively promote gender equality. Please take note of tingnan natin, paulit-ulit po ang gender equality. Kasi iyan ang goal ng ating God programs. Pantay, ano po? Equal. So, God mainstreaming towards gender equality. The goal is to make gender equality as a fundamental value in development choices and institutional practice. Hence, efforts to achieve gender equality are brought into the mainstream decision-making criteria and processes and are pursued from the center rather from the margins. Ano po? Policy imperatives, hindi na natin ito i-discuss kasi ito yung basis ng ating pagkakaroon ng mga programa. You have to abide by the international mandates. We'll have it passing. We have the CEDAW, the BPFA, ano po, then the national or SDGs as an international mandates. Then we have the national mandates. Diniscuss na natin ito kanina. Pinapasadahan natin kasi these are important consideration and gender mainstreaming. Kasi sa ating mandate, yan tayo makakakuha ng mga magandang programa considering our clients. So we go to the mainstreaming in governance. Mainstreaming in governance is a way wherein we can have a gender responsive or make mainstreaming in governance, making governance gender responsive. Paano natin i-define ang governance? Mayroon po ng iba-ibang definition ng tingnan natin ito, iba-ibang definition ng governance. Ang UNDP, sabi niya, the exercise of political, economic, and administrative authority and managing a country's affair. Sabi naman ng World Bank, it is the exercise of political authority and the use of institutional resources to manage society's problems in affairs. The Wikipedia defines governance as the act of governing. It relates to decisions that define expectations, grant power, or verify performance. It consists of either a separate process or part of management or leadership processes. Yan po ang iba-ibang definition ng governance. Or pag-gobyerno, ano po? Parang man yan, how you govern your family, how you govern what kind of governance do we have in the office? Our governance and ano. So iba-iba po. Depende sa klase ng grupo or the or economic and administrative authority na meron. Ano ang institutional resources. But ang purpose ay to manage that resources into towards a goal. Ano po? So this is the simple definition of governance. Sabi governance is proper management or use of authority and resources to respond to the needs of the community. So basic po ang the management authority and you have the resources in order to respond to the needs of the community. That is governance. Our we have to know what is gender responsiveness. Ito po, gender responsiveness is the consistent and systematic attention given to the differences between women and men in society with a view of addressing structural constraints to gender equality. Is it right or wrong? The answer, it is right. So we can only be responsive if we addresses the structural constraints to gender equality. Ang ibig sabihin, simply, dapat na-identify muna natin yung mga problema. So we consider the differences between men and women, then we address structural constraints. So, halimbawa, na-identify mo lang ang problema, pero hindi mo na-address or hindi mo nabigyan ng solusyon, anong tawag doon? Ang tawag doon ay gender sensitive. Kasi sensitive lang kasi hindi mo ay na-identify mo lang but hindi mo na bigyan ng solusyon ang problema towards gender equality. Na po, pag sinabi natin gender responsive, na-identify mo kung ano ang problema and nabigyan mo ng solusyon towards gender equality. Halimbawa, ang problema mo, ang na-identify mo na kulang pala sa ang income ay medyo maliit ng iyong mga farm families. Na-identify natin, ano po, we are gender sensitive. Pero pag binigyan mo sila ng, halimbawa, nag-offer ka ng training, nagkaroon ng magandang technology transfer, nagkaroon ka na ng livelihood, then at the certain period na realize mo na ano na pala, medyo na-augment ang family income. So you are gender responsive to your client. So ganyan lang po, merely identifying the situation or the differences or the problem of your client is you are gender sensitive. Pero pag na-address mo ang problema, you are gender responsive. Paki-take note po between gender sensitive and gender responsive. Pag sinabing gender responsive governance, according to UNIFEM, it is recognized as essential to poverty reduction efforts and respect for human rights. Kuhang-kuha niya po Kasi essential to poverty reduction, which may one of your mandate, then we have to accord or respect for human rights. So that is gender responsive governance. Ito pa, it is seen as conflict prevention, growth and environmental protection. Then democratic governance, meaning an agenda for participation, human rights, and social justice. So in God, bako lang po kung ano ang mandate mo, but it must serve as a conflict prevention, then growth, then environmental concerns are considered. Or a democratic governance for participation, human rights, and social justice. When women are assured to benefit as much as men from governance reforms that focus on reducing corruption and increasing opportunities to participate in public decision making. So that is the complete definition of a gender responsive governance. If we are assured that both men and women would benefit the result of your programs and activities or that solve any problem within your client towards the attainment of an agency mandate becomes a gender responsive governance. Ito po ay siyam na characteristics of gender responsive. Maganda sana kung naka-face-to-face tayo kasi pwede natin itong i-discuss. And ang question kasi, any of the 9 characteristics of gender responsive governance that strike you most. So, alin daw dito sa siyam na characteristics of a gender responsive governance na pwedeng nasa sa inyong agency or sa inyong lokal na gobyerno? Number 1 is participation. It is number 1 characteristics of a gender responsive governance. Pag sinabi nating participation, ang pagpipili ng programa or any activity sa barangay or sa agency, dapat po hindi lang ginagawa ng management or ng higher level. It must be participated or consulted, ikukonsulta po ang clients. So that is participation. Simply, that is, we involve the people that will itong makikinabang, sila magiging beneficiary or they are katulong natin sa pag-i-implement ng programa. Number 2 is the role of law. This is self-explanatory na kung ano po ang batas, yan lang ang sundin. No. Then we have transparency. Pag transparent ka or sabi kang sa silag, walang tinatago. Lalo na kung may mga malaking budget na involved sa proyekto. Then we have responsiveness. Sabi natin, define na natin kanina, what is gender responsiveness? Dapat, it is identifying the needs and the problems, then we give solution or we address them. That is responsiveness. Consensus orientation. Sinabi natin consensus orientation, yan po ay ang programa o ang isang activity ay inaprubahan or ipinakita sa mas madami na po. Hindi yung, tama na yan. Yan ang sabi ni boss. So, kung noon ang kailangan ay sa approval ng mga activity, kung noon ay 50-50, ngayon ay dapat ay consensus ang orientation. More than 80% or ang apo dyan ay plurality na mas madami ang nag-a-approve. Then, equity. Ano ba ang difference ng equity sa equality? Pag sinabi tayong, lagi natin ginagamit yung word equality, ang ibig sabihin ay pantay. Equal treatment, equal sharing, or equal distribution. Pero pagdating sa equity, ano po ang equity? Ang equity ay giving what is needed. Ibigay mo lang ang kailangan. Diba? Ibigay lang po ang kailangan. So, equitable is not synonyms to equality. Pag equality, sabi natin, equal treatment. Parehas ang pagtingin mo sa iyong mga client. Pero pag equity, ibigay mo kung ano ang kailangan. So, equitable distribution. Ito, pwede po itong mai-apply natin sa kung halimbawa may kalamidad or may bagyo. Sa evacuation center, ang common practice kasi natin, pare-parehas ang ibinibigay. Di ba? Pero pag pag titingnan natin ang members of the family sa isang household, hindi pare-pareho. So, ang nangyayari kasi, we practice the equal distribution. Para naman po siguro mas helpful or makakatulong, siguro ang gawin natin ay equitable distribution. Ang 5 members of the family, ang family with 5 members, dapat iba man ang ibibigay mo doon sa family with 10 members. Sabi nung isang namin noon, nung nag-training ako sa barangay, mahirap yan gawin. Oo, mahirap pag umpisa. Pero ginagawa na yan ng iba. Paano? Sabi sa akin. Sabi ko, hindi yan pwedeng dire-diretsa kasi talagang aawahin ka ng mga recipients mo. So, paunti-unti or anong pag nagmi-meeting, isasabi nyo or kung may plano, isasabi na through assembly, sasabihin nyo na ganito na, next distribution of kung may kalamidad, ganito na ang gagawin natin. Ekonomiya sa resources mo at talaga, na kung ano ang kailangan ng mga families, yun ang ibibigay natin. Kasi equality is, kumisan, mas nakakalamang yung kukunti ang members of the family. Kung may kalamidad, magdi-distribute ka ng relief. Po. Then we have effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness and efficiency are two different, but it also leads to proper accomplishment of things. Sabi, doing right things and doing things right. effectiveness and efficiency. Then we have number 8 is accountability. Sabi nga, may mga ano na, if you have the freedom na nagi kang ano sa isang organization, kasi nagi kang yung president, so you have the choice, you have the freedom na ano, garo power mo yan, garo prestige mo. But remember that you must be accountable. It must be coupled always with accountability. That is the rule and the human aspirations. Ano po? Kasi you have to be with, and to be for. Pag sinabi mong accountable ka, that is a freedom with accountability. That is the second level of human aspirations. Then, on the 9 characteristics of the gender-responsive governance, maganda sana kung ano tayo, nakikita-kita. Kasi maaano nyo, bakit hindi yung consequential, ang numbering, ang pag-present nito, ano? Yung 9 ay nasa gitna. Bakit? Kasi ang ano po, vision, kanina pa sinasabi ko na, yung ano nyo, yung programa nyo is within the context of your mission or your budget. So, dapat, alam ko na lahat kayo may mission and vision sa LGU. Ano po? Lahat tayo may mission and vision. Pareho nitong sa ATI, ang babasahin ko itong vision ng ATI, food availability and affordability for every Filipino family through excellent extension services in agriculture and fisheries. And kabalikat ng vision, you have the mission, which is empowerment and building capacities of agricultural and fisheries stakeholders for sustainable development. And I'm sure this empowerment and building capacities of the clients or the agricultural and fisheries stakeholders, hindi to kayang gawin ng ATI personnel lang. So, kasali kayo dyan ng mga extension workers in the locality. Ano po? So, dapat alam natin kung ano itong mga mission and vision natin. Kasi yung lahat na gagawin natin na programa, gender-responsive governance is mandated through or na gagawin natin angkop sa ating agency mission and vision. So, tingnan natin, ganyan talaga, no, nasa gitna yung vision. May example pa rin. Ito po ang 9 characteristics, ano po. Baka sasabihin nyo, ma'am, lahat yan nasa aming, very good. Pero siguro may kunting dapat mapag-aralan para ma-review. Ang vision po, sabi ang role is dapat at least every 10 years, pigre-revise yan. Kasi baka hindi na angkop sa pangangailangan ng inyong mga clients or the general sectors that we are serving. So, it is a guide lang po. May bibigay akong isang ng LGU. Ito ang kanyang vision na natin, based on the may mga po ba kaya, ang tawag dyan, may mga descriptors, ang isang vision. This is very example only, Bula, the Bamboo Industry Center in Southern Luzon, a showcase municipality in agriculture and an ecotourism destination in the province with God-loving, empowered, and resilient citizenry, enjoying globally competitive economy and an ecologically balanced, adequate, and functional government guided by dynamic and committed leadership. Itong klaseng vision dapat, it must be revised, at least my thought on, towards a gender-responsive governance or leadership. Ano po? So, pinapakita ko lang ito kasi usually ganito ang pero mayuning kumbaga walang touch of God, or gender responsiveness. So, siguro we can revise kasi mandated yan eh. Pag nag-revise ka na, kung ang comprehensive land use plan ni-revise within 10 years, dapat ang vision or mission i-revise din natin. Kung ano ang angkop sa ating bagong updates and bagong panuntunan ng government, or we have the government mandates as our basis in revising our mission and vision towards gender responsiveness. Okay? So, yung kanina, nauna na yung pag-define ko. So, tingnan ulit natin para mas maganda ang understanding natin kung ano ang gender equality at gender equity. Ito po. Sabi, gender equality, both men and women are free to develop their personal abilities and make choices without the limitations set by stereotypes, rigid gender roles, and prejudices. So, pantay. Ano po? You have the right to develop your own abilities based on the standards of stereotypes, gender rigid roles, and prejudices. While gender equity, giving to those who have less on the basis of needs and taking steps to compensate for historical and social disadvantages that prevent women and men from otherwise operating on a level playing field. So, sana po magkaroon na tayo ng clear na definition kung ano ang gender equality and gender equity. Gender equality, ang sabi baga, it is not, hindi lang formal equality, but it must be substantive equality. So, what is mainstreaming? Ano po? Sabi, it is an strategy or as a gender perspective is the process of assessing the implications for women and men at any planned action, including legislation, policies, or programs in any area and at all levels. It is also a strategy for making women's as well as men's concerns and experiences an integral dimension of the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of the policies and programs in all political, economic, and societal spheres so that women and men benefit equally and inequality is not perpetuated. So, very clear po dito na pag nag-mainstream ka, you have to do with some processes. Ano po? Alamin mo kung sino ang clients mo, dapat may data ka, then you have to take into consideration the difference or different needs kasi kailangan natin yan paggagawa ng design, on the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of your policies and programs sa kahit na anong aspeto ng paggugobyerno so that equality will be perpetuated, not inequality. Yes, the ultimate goal is to achieve gender equality. Sana matandaan natin ito. Ano po? In God, the ultimate goal is achieve gender equality and women empowerment. Wag na natin itong discuss. Ito kailangan po meron kayo nito sa office or sa inyong organization. Dapat may sex disaggregated data of your, ang tawag dyan ay public servants profile. Ilan ang elective officials, pakicopy po. Kasi kung wala pa kayo, pwede naman yan makatulong sa inyong paggagawa ng inyong programa. Na po. We have the elective officials, ilan ang babae, ilan ang lalaki. Department heads, babae, ilan ang lalaki. Permanent employees, pwede po ba sa OPAG, Sorsogon, pwede tayong ma-complete ang data nito? Then we have the permanent employees. Ilan ang babae, ilan ang lalaki when we have the job order employees. Parang this is a survey of ilan ba talaga ang ano nyo? Do we, na-apply ba na natin yung at least 50-50 employees of both men and women? Pwede po, may I request the OPAG Sorsogon or also the OPAG Cam Norte or any from the LGU, paki-accomplish ng anong ito, ng profile, para matingnan natin, at least matingnan natin kung ilan ba talaga ang ano natin, kung there is fair in terms of, there is fairness in terms of ano, sa, kung saan kasi nag-a-appear yan, kung sa promotion or sa ano ng mga employees. Pagawa sila ng profile ng LGU. Sige, ano po, ano lang po, tulungan na lang natin. Kung halimbawa LGU level or kung sa municipal level or sa inyong ano dyan sa OPAG, Sorsogon. Kasi intak kayo sa isang, ano, ang alam ko ang Norte ay hiwa-hiwala yata by municipality kasi naka-Facebook live lang sila. O pwede naman kung mayroon kayong data nito, pwedeng maipakita natin maya-maya. Okay, shall we proceed? So how do we mainstream gender? May mga, bago daw tayo makapag-gender, ay makapag-mainstream ang ating mga programa at ating mga project sa isang agency or LGU, may tatlong elements. Ang una po ay the use of disaggregated data. Balik-balik tayo kung ano ang sex disaggregated data. Ito, pag disaggregate tayo ng data, maaano natin, dapat alam natin ilan ang babae, ilan ang lalaki. Kaya ang dapat nang gagamitin natin dyan sa ano, hindi. Kumisan kasi may makikita kayo pag pinapa-fill up kayo ng info sheet or information sheet, ang nakalagay gender. Mali po. Dapat ang nakalagay dyan ay sex. Correct niyo po ang kung may mga information sheet kayong ang nakalagay ay gender. Kasi sabi baga natin, pag sex, dapat ang ma-appear dyan ay lalaki at babae. Or the answer is, pag sex is male or female. Pag gender, dapat ang sagot ay feminine or masculine. It is hard to determine pang behavior, lalo kung hindi mo nakikita ang tao. Ano po? So, having a database is needed in the mainstreaming your programs. Use of sex disaggregated data, then consult with various sectors. Yung ano, number one natin na characteristics of gender responsive is, sabi doon, participation. Participation involves consultation. Kasi hindi natin maaanong mag-participate ang mga tao kung hindi tayo nagkaroon ng consultations. We're in consultation maybe through meetings or FGDs, focus group discussions. So we do it with consultation with various sectors. Kung may pagpo-propose tayong mga program or we mainstream our programs. Then the last is the use of gender analysis tools. Ito po, hindi natin ito i-discuss, pero kailangan ito. Kung sana na ang mag-training ay ang technical working group or God focal point system, or if we have some other times na magkaroon kayo ng mag-training, we can have the gender analysis tools. Kasi knowing the gender analysis tools or applying the gender analysis tools would facilitate the identification of gender issues, thus making your gender responsive God plan and budget. So that is gender mainstreaming, or those are the elements of gender mainstreaming. You must have sex disaggregated data, you consult with various sectors, and you use gender analysis. Gender analysis tools. Natin itong kamay. Ano po? Gender mainstreaming in local governance towards good governance. Then on the, we have the 8 or the 9 characteristics. Ano po? Yan yung ina-identify natin. Conscious, consensus-oriented, participatory, accountable. Then we have transparent, responsive, then we have equitable, effective and efficiency. Effective and efficiency follows the role of law. Then we have the strategic vision. Ano po? Ito pong nakapalibot sa good governance, there are the characteristics that we have identified. Then itong on the fingers, we have the human aspirations, wherein sabi nga, ang tao ay pag nabuhay, you are within a family. Ito po life. Then we have the freedom and accountability. Maswerte ka ta nagi kang head of office or nagi kang barangay official or what, but your freedom must be accompanied with accountability. Yun po. Any position or any aspect na nagkaroon ka, you have the freedom to choose, then dapat po may accountability. Then it is, kung gusto mo na ma-maintain ang, sabi nga, to be with or to be for, you have to exercise love and unity. So this is to be, nabuhay tayo, to be with, and to be for. Because of love and unity, in that aspect, we call it the human aspirations. One time nag-training ako, sabi ko, what does it mean? Kasi hindi ko muna pinakita yung mga, sabi nila, nanghihingi daw. Ang ibig sabihin lang po niyan, ang pagiging gender responsive ng iyong agency ay depende po sa inyong kamay. Ano po? Ang pagiging maayos ng ating pamilya, wag na natang lumayo. Yung family na lang natin ang example. Ang pagiging maayos na pamilya ay depende po o nakaatang sa iyong kamay. How you manage your family, how you treat your children, kung paano natin ituturo sa ating mga kapamilya. So sabi ko nga, pag-umpisa, God should start within ourselves, to our family, to our workplace, and to our community. So, this is a simple illustration of mainstreaming gender in local governance. We know the characteristics. We know as people, sabi ko nga, we are the most important resource. Kita being as an employee of the DA, we must have this kind of human aspirations that we have. To be with, and to be for. To be because nabuhay tayo. To be with because of our freedom, and it must be, siguro nagi kang empleyado ng DA, ng ATI. Ano po? Then, it is because of, it must be grounded on love and unity. And that is a simple illustration of a human aspiration. Yan po ang very short ng gender mainstreaming. Madali lang po if you have, dapat alam natin kung paano tayo gagawa ng magandang programa. Sabi ko nga, wag na tayong lumayo, umpisa natin sa ating pamilya. At I'm sure everybody will be happy kasi walang multiple burden sa bahay. loob ng bahay kasi kung minsan ang lahat ng trabaho ay naiaatang sa isa na lang o dalawa. Hindi walang participation ang mga anak, walang ang ibang kasamahan sa bahay. So it is on the matter of advocacy and how we embrace God or gender and development. Ano po? So that ends our second topic because we have another. But if you have questions, please have it on the chat box para ma-discuss natin bago tayo mag-umpisa doon sa third topic. Ano ba? Ano na natin para mas madali masagot natin yun. Pakiano po, participants, lahat na nag-aano sa online, pwede po kayong magbigay ng additional idea or any verification or ano po, mga katanungan para mas maganda ang ano natin. Ma-enhance ang ating learning.
Alright, thank you po, Maricela. Okay. So, meron po tayo dito yung katanungan galing kay Mr. Mark Antonio Poman.
Yes, sir.
Sa kanyang sa certificate po na kakailangan niya for the establishment of LSA certification. Okay. Sir, upon consulting our LSA coordinators, ito po yung kanilang mga solusyon na maaari niyo pong magawa. Okay. So, since hindi po kayo nakaregister para dito sa ating GAD training, meron po tayong alternative way para po magkaroon po tayo ng certificate. Okay. Una-una po, binigay po nila sa amin is yung meron po tayong online e-learning na kung saan pwede po tayong mag-login doon, pwede po tayong makakuha ng certificate once na makumpleto po natin ang mga requirements o ang trainings na pipiliin po natin doon. So sir, pa-screenshot na lang po. Ayan. Kasi 9. Ito po yung link. So just type in e-extension.gov.ph/e-learning/. Okay, so doon po makikita niyo po doon yung create new account and follow the instructions to get started. Yan, pa-screenshot na lang po, pamain na lang po, pamain. Yan. Okay, so doon naman po sa iba na ibang way pa para magkaroon po tayo ng certificate galing sa ATI, pwede rin po tayong mag-subscribe o i-like po natin ang aming ATI Bicol page dito po sa Facebook para po sa mga susunod pang mga trainings na pwede po nating salihan. Lahat naman po ito ay libre at may mga certificates po na makukuha kapag nag-register po. So may mga trainings po kami sa mga susunod na mga araw na i-flash po namin, ipopost po namin sa Facebook para po makapag-register po kayo. Okay, and sana nasagot ko po ang tanong ni Sir Anthony. Okay, for other question naman po regarding po sa ating topic, sa ating lecture, meron po ba? Sa OPAG po ba may gusto magtanong?
Anong profile?
May ano nung mic? Hindi, mic nila.
Oo, yung profile.
Ako, siguro busy sila sa paggawa ng profile. Opo, sa profile na ginagawa nila kanina, no? Busy yata sila. Ayan, very good. Kaway-kaway po, mga taga-OPAG!
group pati sila.
Nakapag-merienda na ba kayo? Alam ko ang drinks nyo, orange juice.
Pati send.
Pakisend na lang po yung mga kung tapos na po yung mga ginagawa nyo, pasend na lang daw po para po ma-check ni Mama Maristela. Bro, sa online mo tanong tayo. Wala pa na.
Pwede ka magtanong.
Huwag mahiya.
Kasi sila mamaya may tanong, paano na pa-unmute nung kanila? Pa-unmute na lang po, ma'am, para po marinig po.
Nag-type si ma'am. No. Ano daw, 27 female.
Oh,
Over.
27 female. Ilan ang lalaki?
Female lahat.
Empleyado niya?
Ano pa ba? Baka next pa yung female. Wala. Female talaga mo.
Talaga.
Female lahat.
Female lahat ang empleyado ng OPAG. Bakit?
Yan. Pag-usapin mo na lang.
Ayan, pwede na po.
Ma'am, hello. Doon mo na lang. Saan mo na lang. Doon na ano.
Sige po, ma'am, pwede na po kayo magsalita. Pa-unmute sa akin. Sa akin yung mic na Mama Maristela. Yes, ma'am. Hello, mic check po. Hindi po nakakarinig. Hindi po siya naka-ano.
Patay sila. At yung nakatay ko kasi.
Opo.
Ito.
30. Ano? Hindi ko mag-gets. 27 female, 35 male.
All female ang... Oo, hindi nila. Ano lang sektor yung ano.
Opo, so paano na lang daw po kung ano pong sector yung 27 and yung...
All female. Job order, all female. Job order, all female.
Okay.
Ito male type.
Opo.
27 na female. Sa ano po ito sa personnel o employees? Ito female 27, male 35. So, wala naman pala pong masyadong problema as to personnel, ano po. So, may, ano man, na more or less na-meet yung 40% ng, ng personnel. So, wala namang, kasi kung minsan sa ibang opisina, minsan lahat, mas madami ang babae or mas masyadong madami ang lalaki. So, ang job order nyo ay 4 lang, lahat. Okay lang po. Kasi usually, kuminsan sa mga job orders, depende sa position na kailangan. So, okay ma'am. Pero maganda po, mayroon tayong, mayroon tayong data niyan sa office. At least nakikita, disaggregate natin ang data. Ano po? I-send namin yung pwede naman po makita nyo doon sa PDF na ibibigay namin. Para at least kung wala niyan sa office, makakita na at least ma-present sa office. Thank you, ma'am. Ano pang ibang questions na pwedeng i-clarify bago tayo pumunta sa last topic, which is gender fair.
Language.
Gender fair language. Ito po. Next topic na tayo. Internet, gender fair lang. Ang last topic natin, dito. This will be our last topic for this morning. The use of gender-fair language is the first benchmark of gender sensitivity as mandated in the PCW Memorandum Circular 2014-06. This was a shared slide from one of my co-batches in the PCW accredited trainer. Ano ang sinasabi? May ang Civil Service Commission Memorandum Circular number 12, series of 2005, ang may inisyu po sila na use of non-sexist language in all official documents, letters, memorandums, and etc. and issuances. Sinabi din doon sa Memorandum Circular that language ang essential tool in communication. Encourage government to make a conscious effort to avoid implicit and explicit discriminatory language and help promote gender sensitivity and the bureaucracy. Yan po ang ng Civil Service Memorandum Circular number 12, series of 2005. Kumbaga, matagal na talaga na may mga memorandum circulars mandating all offices, kaya lang hindi po masyadong na-i-implement. The Magna Carta of Women, or otherwise known as the Republic Act 9710, it reinforces the use of gender-sensitive language at all times. And also PCW Memorandum Circular 2014-06. Oh, this was the latest. Language shapes thoughts, perceptions, and attitudes, and thus plays a very crucial role in promoting gender awareness and consciousness. The use of generic masculine terms to refer to both sexes in the text of laws renders women invisible and could result to the non-consideration of their needs and concerns in the implementation of such laws. Ano po? Yan ang ng PCW Memorandum Circular. It's beyond the mandate. Gender-free language and being gender-sensitive through communication goes beyond office work. We need it when we interact with people in all the public places and within our home. Gender in communication and communication can be pivotal in promoting gender equality by transforming attitudes and norms that perpetuate gender-based discrimination. Communication is also closely linked to empowerment as it contributes to building confidence and skills to negotiate choices and demand for equal access to and control of resources. So, kailangan talaga po ang ating paggagamit or non-sexist dapat. Hindi yung nakatutok lang sa isang ang ating sa isang panig or ang ating mga communication. Is about removing explicit, implicit, actual, and potential gender biases within organization programs, projects, and activities, and policies of those who are concerned with development. Often, word choices often reflect on unconscious assumption about values, gender roles, and the abilities of women and men. Gendered language is still commonplace in both the workplace and everyday life. Example, when speaking about a resident representative, many colleagues automatically use the male from he, not knowing if the person is a woman or a man. This is a UNDP saying. Use of language with the values individuals and foster gender inequality and equity. And sometimes, sexism in language is discriminatory. Pero ang tawag dyan? Na hindi masyadong nabibigyan ng value ang individual. Why the concern about mere words? Language articulates consciousness. From infancy, we learn to use language based on our basic needs and feelings. Language reflects culture, encodes and transmits cultural meanings and values in our society. Children learning a language absorb the cultural assumption and biases underlying language use. Social inequity reflected in language can affect the child. So, language affects socialization. Ano po? So, from childhood, language is affected by socialization. Or socialization is affected by language in either way. Tingnan natin. It's a man's world. Take it like a man. Sabi ng I don't think so. Yun po ang mga findings ng mga man's as false generic. It is often claimed that man, the word man is a generic term that it refers to all humans, male and female. Man was once used as a true generic. So may mga examples. Adult male must whip man, while whip man referred to an adult female. Over time, whip man developed into woman. The term whap man was dropped and man became associated specifically with adult males. Use of man, the word man obscures the presence and contribution of women. Use of man conjures up images of male persons only, not females or males and females together. Ito po ang mga example na hindi na dapat natin gamitin ngayon. Ang cameraman, dapat ano na siya, photographer or videographer. Salesman, the correct term now, because of sexism, or we have to avoid sexism, salesman is salesperson. Chairman must be chairperson or chair. Spokesman, it must be spokesperson. Fireman is firefighter. Fisherman is fisher or fisherfolk. Statesman, it must be diplomat or political leader. So, pwede ba natin itong mai-adapt na in our daily conversation or when we are making communication or letters? We use this new term na, ano po? Cameraman, photographer, salesman, salesperson, chairman, chairperson, fireman, firefighter, fisherman, dapat po fishers or fisherfolk, and statesman. So, ito na po ang tama na gamitin natin lalo na. Sabi nga, mapapractice natin ito in having our communication, kung may kausap tayo, hindi man natin ito kaagad-agad ma-ano na. Pero if we are aware, madali mo talagang ma-practice o maisa buhay ang ating mga tamang lingwahe or language. Ito po, exercise ito, ginawa ko, instead na ma-exercise tayo, inano ko na lang po, answer na or result ng binigay ko. The man we want for the job, dapat hindi naman, it must be the person we want for the job. The man was changed to person. The man on the street, average or ordinary person. Statesmanship or diplomacy, manhood or adulthood, maturity. Forefather, it must be ancestors. Businessman, dapat entrepreneur or business executive. Manpower, it must be human resource. Ang congressman, sana po hindi na tayo magtatawag na congressman Lagman or congressman Bordado or congressman o kung sinong ano yun. It must be representative or legislator. Ano po? Dapat po ay representative, hindi congressman. Ito, iba naman itong ano. Human is a species who suckles their young. From the word man is a species who suckles his young. Ano po? Manning the office, it must be staffing. Nabaliktad nito. Man-made, it must be human-made or manufactured. Layman, layperson. Brotherhood of man, solidarity or community. Masterful, must be skillful. Man-hours, hindi na po man-hours, but it must be work hours or staff work. Then, policeman, it must be police officer or law enforcer. So, sana po, mai-practice na natin ang katama ng wala na yung policeman. It must be police officer or law enforcer. Pareho yung fisherman, it must be fisherfolk or fishers itself. Na po. Non-sexist or unbiased language is gender neutral. It does not exclude either by direct reference or implication one sex or the other. Words need to be chosen carefully to eliminate inappropriate gender implications. When the gender of an object is non-existent or unknown, there is no reason to attach a supposed gender. Ano po? Dapat magikang pag ang alam mong object is not existent, huwag kang mag-attach ng gender. If you are talking about a doctor whose identity is not given, do not assume that the doctor is a he. No. Dapat di ka mag-assume na ang doktor ay lalaki. Kasi doctor can be both men and women. Another example, everyone pack his lunch. His is a pronoun that usually represents male, but everyone packed a lunch. If the customer has complained, send him to the service desk. The tama po ay customers with complaints should be sent to the service desk. Inalis mo yung plural na him. The handicapped child may be able to feed himself. Hindi na po ginagamit yung handicap. Ang ginagamit ay differently able. Differently able. Children may be able to feed themselves. So instead of using handicap, use differently able. Para naman hindi masyadong nakakababa ng tao. Handicap ka ngayon. You are differently able. Disabled. Pwede man, disabled. Adding suffixes and modifiers. This one is actress. Dapat actor. Huwag na yung kasi sex-link modifier suggests that the norms for some occupation is for a particular sex. Kasi, pag actor, pwede ng babae at lalaki. Parang pang proprietor, suffragist, usher, heroes. Huwag ng heroines or heroic women. Hindi po doktora. Magbabae, maglalaki, we can use doctor. Ano po? Working mothers, wage earning mothers. Minsan ang mga examples, parang hindi mo matanggap na yan na pala yan ang Pero practicing it more often na matututo talaga tayo. Yung mga demeaning words, oy chicks, lady of the house, dear housewife, mistress. Ano pala pag mistress? Ano na pala siya? The marginalization in language, the better half instead of using the better half, use wife or husband. Bachelor girl, spinster dear or old maid. Huwag mo naman sabihin old maid. Unmarried woman. No. Starlets, aspiring actors. Girl Friday assistant. Minority women or groups. Ethnic women or groups. Hookers, whores, prostitutes, gigolo, callboy. Sex workers or prostituted women or men. House husbands, wives. It must be homemakers. Servants or maids. Domestic head person, household. Hopeless. Helpers and household staff. Then we have the bus boys. It must be service crew. First, designate, we have the motherhood or fatherhood. Instead that it identify the mother or mother, make it father. Headmaster or headmistress, it is not the principal. Master or mistress of ceremony, call it MC or host. Traffic and women, sex tourism. Stewardess or bellboy, bellhop. Stewardess, flight or cabin attendant. Flight attendant or cabin attendant. Stereotyping means a fixed or conventional notion or conception as of a person, group, or idea, and others held by a number of people in allowing for no individuality. Yan, ito yung mga ano na Fox dominations, God hates you. Yung example ng mga ano ng mga LGBT. Verbal jabs of crybaby or mama's boy are often used with the intent to hurt. Dapat pala huwag kang magsasabi ng mama's boy. No, verbal jabs of crybaby. The use of pronoun correctly. Use pronoun correctly. First and second person pronouns are genderless, such as I, we, me, you, our, ours, yours, and so on, instead of his and her. So may mga ano talaga po na dapat matutunan natin kung paano natin gagamitin. Pati ang paggamit ng pronoun. Iba pa kasi ang connotation pag nagiging tayong sexist. When writing to or talking to women, don't use Mrs. Ben Lopez. Use Ida Lopez or Mrs. Ida Lopez. Kasi ginagamitan pa nila nung ano ng husband, parang nawawala yung identity ng babae. So use the first name of the women or of the wife. The wife is married to a man, the opposite of wife is husband. One does not own or supersede the other. Thus, it is inaccurate to use man and wife. Instead, use husband and wife or man and woman. So, ma-introduce ka po, halimbawa, do not choose husband or ano mo po na if you use the word husband, it must be accompanied with wife. If you use man to represent male, ang isunod mo ay woman. If you are introducing a father or a husband. Ano po? So, define women by who they are, not by who their fathers or husbands are. That's the rule. Ano po? Avoid referring to the physical appearance of a female subject unless this is relevant to the story. Example, the rape complainant is Rosita, a pretty co-ed. Kung hindi na kailangan yung last words, huwag mo nang ilagay. Kung hindi naman yung relevant sa tama na yung the rape complainant is Rosita. Tapos na doon, wala nang kasi parang inaano mo pa siya eh. Rinirefer mo pa na maganda. Kung sabagay, baka talaga na naman dahil maganda. Pero hindi na yun kailangan. Masyadong sexist. Treat women as individuals in their own right, not as appendage or adjuncts of women. Do not give a woman's marital status if you feel this is not relevant or the same is not necessary for a man. Do not lump a married woman with husband under his name. Yes. Kung hindi daw kailangan na i-introduce mo siya na married or what, wag mo nang sabihin. Try to use the generic MS. Do not assume that all mothers should be addressed as Mrs. Yan. Lalo kung nag-a-address tayo ng, halimbawa, gusto mo mag-communicate to someone, babae siya, or mother siya, ba't hindi mo sigurado kung may asawa siya? So, we can have the use MS. Kasi, do not assume that all mothers should be addressed as Mrs. MRS. Ano po? You can use the generic MS. There are the 6 principles for written and oral communications. 1. Ensure that women and men are represented. Kung ano ka ng written and oral communications, be sure that women and men are represented. Challenge gender stereotypes. Avoid exclusionary forms. Ano pa? Mr. and Mrs. Mr. Halimbawa, Mr. Jose Cruz and Mrs. Dapat kung papangalanan mo, ngalanan mo rin yung babae. Create a gender balance and promote gender equity through titles. This is a UNDP article, Journal and Joint Memorandum 29. Some other ways of English language reinforces patriarchy. Differential naming is a common practice where males are referred to by adults titles, while females may be referred to by pre-adult titles. Example, Mr. Smith, the men from accounts, and the girls from marketing want to see you. Grabe, pero masyado ng mas itong adult titles. Inanuhan pa siya, Mr. Smith. Spotlighting occurs when the use of an adjective draws attention to a role adaptation that challenges a gender role. For example, a male nurse, male prostitute, a career woman. Huwag mo nang gamitan ng male or woman. You just say nurse or a prostitute and a woman. Dahil wala nang mga gender role. Huwag mo nang i-attach. Ano po? That is spotlighting. Diminutivization is where roles and names are formed by adding lower status or affectionate suffixes to titles in names. For example, actress or waitress. Pag hindi masyadong kailangan, wag doon nang i-add. Ano po? Yung pangalan lang ibigay. Some strategies to create inclusiveness. Recast the sentence to omit the gender-specific pronouns. The average student may end up spending too much of his time on software. Pwede naman magawa na the average student may end up spending too much money on software. Alisin na po yung his. That is a pronoun, gender-specific pronoun. Use imperative mode of verbs in other words, given order. Halimbawa, ganito, he or she can load the DVD. Make it load the DVD. The use of third-person pronouns with second-person pronoun. He or she, very common po ito, ang magamit ka, may he or she must clean up the conference room. Dapat daw po, you must clean up the conference room at the end of each meeting. Wag nang he or she, you directly replace the third person with second person pronoun. Ang example po ng third person pronoun ay he or she, while the second person pronoun is you. Huwag na natin itong ang iba kasi hindi naman masyadong ibibigay na lang namin sa inyo ang the whole PDF of this. Use plural. The modern plumber knows what he cannot neglect the paperwork. Mga examples po ito. Ito po. Change a nominal to a verbal expression. A person who has in his possession such prohibited substances will in fact have broken the law. So an example po, a person who possesses such prohibited substances will in fact have broken the law. Inalis itong nominal to a verbal expression. The first is who has in his possession. Ginawa na lang po na who possesses. Ano po? These are mga technical sa paggagawa ng o paggagamit ng iba-ibang pronouns na very specific po lalo sa pag-communicate. Ano po? So, ito po ang ibang example. Chairman, it must be chair or chairperson. Man-made instead of artificial, synthetic, or constructed. Manpower, it must be human resource. Foreman, supervisor, or team leader. Salesman, salesperson. Ano ang tawag sa manhole? Dapat access hatch. Ano? Access hatch. Shop girl. Must be staff member or salesperson. Ano po ang core messages? Sa kahaba-haba nating diniscuss, tandaan po natin ito. Ito ang pinaka-core message on the gender-fair language. Language shapes thoughts, perceptions, and attitudes, and thus plays a very crucial role in promoting gender awareness and consciousness. Communication can be pivotal in promoting gender equality by transforming attitudes and norms that perpetuate gender-based discrimination. It is also closely linked to empowerment. It contributes to building confidence and skills to negotiate choices and demand for equal access to and control of resources. Thank you. Ang reference po natin ito ay NEDA Gender Fair Language, then UNDP Gender Sensitive Communications. For your better understanding ka itong mga civil service laws, pwede po inyo itong yung i-research. Kasi may full length discussion po itong mga different memorandum circulars issued by the civil service, by the PCW, and the Magna Carta of Women. Kailangan po talaga na alam natin kung ano ang mga balikan natin yung unang tingnan natin yung mga memorandum circular para pwede naman kayong mag-research yung para guided kayo. Kasi yun, mandate siya tayo ng mga civil service. Balikan natin. Ano po? Ito, PCW MC 2014-06. For PCW materials, you can go to the web page of the www.pcw.gov.ph. Ano po? Pwede nyo yan hanapin sa mga web page. Then we have the Magna Carta of Women. Ito po, kasi talaga ito ng Civil Service Memorandum Circular number 12 series of 2005. The use of non-sexist language. And meron din akong nakita yung gender fair language ng ng PCOO. Philippine Commission, anong tawag doon? PCOO? Yung headed by Andanar. Andyan po, may din sila ng materials on the gender fair language. So marami tayong makukuha, pwede na tayong mag-research sa mga iba-ibang But most of all, we have to know or dapat magkaroon kayo nitong sa Civil Service Memorandum Circular number 12, series of 2005. Kasi may yun, it has something to do with all your official documents, letters, memorandums, and issuances as required by the Civil Service Commission. So, that's all about gender fair language. Ang importante po, at least mai-practice natin yung mga basic terms gaya ng hindi na tayo policeman, must be police officer, Yung congressman, dapat hindi na congressman, it must be representative. Yung fisherman, hindi na po dapat fisherman. We use fisher folks. Na po. Kasi pa unti-unti natin pag-practice niyan, masasanay din tayo. Kasi we cannot learn kung hindi natin na-practice. Saka yung parang pagbibigay sa mga pag-a-address natin sa mga kasamahan natin. Huwag na tayo masyadong parang demeaning kung saan ang ibibigay nating address sa kasamahan natin. And lalo na po doon sa mga paggamit ng pronouns, he or she, we go directly to you instead of he or she. His or her, dapat gamito na we or they para mas parang very general ang address natin sa ating mga kasi may mandate yan, saka kailangan talaga na medyo tama ang ating binibigay na iwasan natin yung sexist language. So that ends our third topic, and we have completed the Magna Carta of Women, gender mainstreaming, and the gender fair language. If you have anything na hindi masyadong malinaw, we have time, at least 15 minutes to work it on para bago tayo sa last day, maintindihan natin masyado ang ating topics. But again, for tomorrow, we will be having a gender analysis, gender issues, GAD database, and the Republic Act 7877 or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Law. We promise that all these topics, the PDF files will be provided to all participants. Depende po, ang magbigay sa inyo ay ang ATI. Ano po? And we have, ulitin ko yung sabi na may mga requirements. Kung kayo ay gusto ng certificate, may mga requirements po. Sana tandaan natin yun. So, anything na pwede ho kayong sa chat box para mas natin ma-review or madagdagan ang kaalaman. Sir?
Ayan, thank you so much, Ma'am Maristela. So upon checking naman po sa ating mga online viewers, wala naman po masyadong mga tanong ating mga online participants. Okay, ayan naman po, natapos naman po ang 4 na oras ng ating hitik na hitik sa talakayan at kaalaman. So abangan nyo po muli ang aming pagpapatuloy na talakayan sa pangatlong araw natin ng pagsasanay bukas. Same time, same channel. Sa mga nais po balikan ang mga napanood sa ating episode ngayon sa ATI Bicol, maaari niyo pong balikan ang aming ang discussion na ito sa ating Facebook account at sa YouTube channel. So hanapin niyo lang po sa Facebook ang ATI Bicol official Facebook at ang ATI Bicol Sarabay channel sa YouTube. At para po sa mga hindi po nakapag-like, para po sa mga hindi pa po nakapag-like at nakapag-subscribe sa aming official page at channel, paki-like and follow, subscribe po tayo para sa ating updated at mga kaganapan sa ating ATI Sarabay channel. Ulit po, salamat po kami kay Ma'am Maristela Tigisati. Ma'am, thank you, maraming salamat po sa pagbibigay sa amin ng dagdag kaalaman ngayong araw patungkol po sa gender and development. Okay, at syempre sa mga participants po natin sa online viewers at sa ating mga on-site, yan, isa lang po nakikita natin ng Sorsogon, pero nandiyan po ang iba pang mga LGUs ng Camarines Norte. Okay, and nagpapasalamat din po kami sa lahat ng mga online viewers po natin na talagang tumutok at talagang nais matuto ng about sa gender and development. Okay, shoutout po sa inyo lahat. Napakarami nila. Maraming salamat po. Okay. So muli, sa ngalan po ng aming Center Director na si Ma'am Elsa A. Parot, kami ay nagpapasalamat sa walang sawa ninyo pagtangkilik sa ATI Sarabay Channel. Learn at home at tandaan at i-share po natin ang mga hashtag na hashtag stay safe, hashtag follow health protocols, at hashtag Sarabay Channel. Together we heal as one. Magkita-kita po ulit tayo bukas para sa ating ulit araw ng pagsasanay sa gender and development. Sa indo pong lahat, Diyos mabalos po sa indo gabos, and God bless us all. Bye!
The Agricultural Training Institute is the training and extension arm of the Department of Agriculture. It has a network of 16 regional training centers in the country. The ATI-RTC in Region 5 serves the 6 provinces in the Bicol region. These are Albay, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, Catanduanes, Masbate, and Sorsogon. We are committed to serve the training and extension needs of our clients.
In January to June 2019, ATI Bicol completed 60 ATI-funded training courses, an average of 10 each month. These activities served 2,947 stakeholders in agriculture and fisheries. 5 community-based learning sites brought the total number of ATI-certified farm tourism sites in Bicol to 51.
My dear countrymen, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the Philippines has risen to 140. Upon further study of worldwide trends, I have come to the conclusion that stricter measures are necessary. It will be an enhanced quarantine during which the movement of everyone will be significantly limited.
So yung ATI Bicol VCQ, lumawak ang mundo. Kasi nakita natin yung oportunidad na mag-virtual visit sa ating mga kliyente at sa mga gustong matuto. Kailangan umayo na tayo sa new normal. Kailangan ng ATI Bicol should be continuously visible. So we have to be continuous online visibility for information dissemination.
Ituring ang iyong sariling tagahawi ng ulap sa kalangitang kulimlim. Kampanang yayanig sa bawat nilalang, magigising ang lupang kulang sa dilim. Ikaw ang magsasabing kaya mo to, tulad ng isang tanglaw sa gitna ng bagyo. Isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag, liwanag sa dilim. Harapin mong magiting ang bagong awitin. Ikaw ang liwanag sa dilim. Whoa, whoa, whoa. At sa paghamon mo sa agos ng ating kasaysayan, uukit ka ng bagong daan. Oh, oh, ikaw ang aawit ng kaya mo to, isang panalangin sa gitna ng gulo. Isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag, liwanag sa dilim. Harapin mong magiting ang bagong awitin. ikaw ang liwanag.
Parang binigyan tayo ng chance para mag-isip na mas maraming innovations. Kung pwede kayang mag-online, tapos hinimay ng hinimay ng hinimay. Pwede kaya tayo magkaroon ng TV show? ATI Bicol Sarabay Channel. Kasi yung word na Sarabay means all together.
Sigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag sa dilim. Iting ang bagong awitin. Liwanag, isigaw mo sa hangin, tumindig at magsilbing liwanag sa dilim. Harapin mong magiting ang bagong awitin. Liwanag sa dilim. Liwanag sa dilim.
Salamat mga subscribers! Salamat sa nag-like at share! Salamat sa ating resource person! Salamat sa ating learning design! Para sa ating mga magsasaka at mga isla!
Ngayong April 30, tara na't kilalanin natin ang mga Bicolanong bayaning magsasaka. Ating pakinggan ang kanilang mga pinagdaanan ngayong panahon ng pandemya. 2 oras ng talakayan kasama sina Carlito Aquino, magsasakang sayentista ng Ocampo, Camarines Sur; Rosini Obligacion, National Outstanding Rural Women mula sa Ligao City, Albay; at Liboy Quibral, Provincial 4-H Youth Leader ng Camarines Norte. Manood at pakinggan ang mga kwentong magbibigay inspirasyon at ideya sa malikhaing pagsasaka. AgriTalk in Digital Agriculture presents Mga Bayaning Magsasaka, Ani ng Tagumpay. April 30, alas 10 ng umaga, hatid sa inyo ng DEATI Bicol. Ngayong April 30, tara na't kilalanin natin ang mga Bicolanong bayaning magsasaka. Ating pakinggan ang kanilang mga pinagdaanan ngayong panahon ng pandemya. 2 oras ng talakayan kasama sina Carlito Aquino, magsasakang sayentista ng Ocampo, Camarines Sur; Rosini Obligacion, National Outstanding Rural Women mula sa Ligao City, Albay; at Liboy Quibral, Provincial 4-H Youth Leader ng Camarines Norte. Manood at pakinggan ang mga kwentong magbibigay inspirasyon at ideya sa malikhaing pagsasaka. AgriTalk in Digital Agriculture presents Mga Bayaning Magsasaka, Ani ng Tagumpay. April 30, alas 10 ng umaga, hatid sa inyo ng DEATI Bicol.